Princess Leora walked quietly through the long halls of her palace. She had always felt safe here, surrounded by the beauty of her home and the loyalty of her servants. The walls were decorated with rich tapestries, and the air smelled of sweet flowers. Her life was perfect until now. It was late at night, and most of the palace was quiet. The stars shined brightly outside the windows. Leora had just finished her evening dinner and was headed to her chambers. She planned to rest and prepare for the royal event tomorrow, where she would meet other important guests. As she approached a hallway near the palace's eastern wing, she saw a figure standing by the door to her husband's private room.
Hi.
Figure wore the uniform of a guard, but this was no ordinary palace guard. Leora had never seen him before. His eyes were sharp and his posture was tense. He didn't look like the usual soldiers who served her family. The guard stepped forward as she neared. His expression was serious and his voice was firm. "Princess Leora, you cannot enter that room," he said quietly, his voice low enough so only she could hear. Leora stopped in her tracks, confused. "Why not?" she asked, looking past him, toward the door. Her husband, Prince Darius, had been working late inside. She was sure he needed her by his side. The guard's face remained calm, but his eyes showed something more: concern, fear, maybe even sadness. "Your husband is planning something dangerous," he said, voice barely a whisper. "He wants you dead." The words hit her like a slap across the face. Her body froze in shock. "What? My husband? But... why?" she asked, her voice shaking. She had to have misunderstood. Prince Darius had always treated her with care, and their marriage was one of peace, an alliance that united two powerful planets. The guard hesitated, then took a step closer. "I know this is hard to believe, Your Highness, but I am a human soldier, sent here by the Galactic Council. I'm here to protect you from the prince." Leora's heart raced. She had never seen a human soldier before. Humans were known to be strong and fierce warriors, respected across the galaxy for their skills in battle. She had heard stories, but meeting one face to face was different. This man was not like the gentle diplomats who served in the palace. There was something in his eyes that told her he was telling the truth. "You're saying my husband is trying to kill me?" she repeated, unable to grasp the idea. "Why would he do that? What happened?" The guard sighed. "I don't have all the answers, but I know that your husband has been planning to take control of the galaxy for years. He's been using you as a tool in his game for power. Now that he has what he wants, you're no longer useful to him. He wants to eliminate you before you become a threat." Leora's mind spun. Her husband, the man she had trusted, the man she had loved, was planning to kill her? It didn't make sense. There had to be some mistake. But the fear in the guard's eyes told her this was real. "I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't believe you." The guard stepped back, giving her space to think. "You don't have to believe me right now, but I can't let you go in there. It's not safe. If you go in, it could be too late." Leora took a step back, her eyes locked on the guard. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. Could this really be true? Could the man she had married be capable of such betrayal? Her mind flashed to their first meeting, the wedding, the years spent together. How had she not seen it? "Please," the guard said, his voice low but urgent. "You have to trust me. Life is in danger. You must leave this palace now. It's the only way to survive." For the first time in her life, Leora felt fear take hold of her heart. Her mind screamed for answers, but there was no time. The guard's words echoed in her mind. She had to make a choice. Should she stay and confront her husband, or should she trust this stranger and run? She looked at the guard again. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm Lucas," he replied, his eyes softening a little. "I've been assigned to protect you. I'm here to get you out of here, to a safe place. Please, Your Highness, trust me." Leora stood silently for a moment, her mind fighting between her fear and her duty. She was a princess, and she had always been taught to be strong, to never show weakness. But at this moment, with her life on the line, she knew that she couldn't do it alone. She nodded slowly. "All right," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll trust you. But where do we go? Lucas's face softened as he took a step forward. We have to leave now. There's a ship waiting for you. It will take us to a place where the prince's forces won't be able to reach you. I'll protect you, Princess Leora, but you have to hurry. Leora looked one last time at the door where her husband waited, and then, with a deep breath, she turned away. She was no longer a princess with a perfect life. She was a woman on the run, fighting for her survival, as she followed Lucas into the dark corridors. Leora knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed, and she would never be the same again. Leora stepped away from the palace doors, her heart pounding in her chest. The cold air of the night wrapped around her, but she barely felt it. Everything felt unreal. A few moments ago, she had been walking to her chambers as a princess, living her life as usual. Now, she was running from the man she had loved. The man she had married for peace because he wanted her dead. Lucas. The human guard led her quickly through the winding halls of the palace. The sounds of the palace were muffled now, the usual voices and laughter replaced with the thumping of her own heartbeat. Her mind was in chaos, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How could her husband, Prince Darius, do this? He was the leader of a powerful kingdom, and she was supposed to be his partner, not a threat. Where are we going? She finally asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was shaky, betraying the fear she had tried to hide. She had to know what was happening. Trust me, Your Highness, Lucas replied, his voice calm but firm. We're going to a safe place, far from the palace. It's the only way we can keep you alive. Your husband's plans are bigger than you realize. Leora stopped walking. She was scared, terrified. Actually, but something inside her told her that she needed to know more. Tell me what's going on, she demanded, her voice firmer this time. Why would Darius want to kill me? What has he been planning? Lucas turned to face her, his expression serious but compassionate. It's a long story, Princess, but I'll explain as much as I can. Darius isn't the man you think he is. He's not a noble ruler, working for the good of his people. He's ambitious, ruthless, and he's been using you all along. Leora felt a sharp pain in her chest. She wanted to argue to defend her husband, but deep down, she knew Lucas wasn't lying. She had seen the changes in Darius over the years. He had become more distant, more focused on power than on their marriage. She had told herself it was just stress, that the demands of ruling a kingdom had changed him. But now, in the cold light of this moment, she saw the truth. Darius has been making deals with other rulers, Lucas continued, his voice low and steady. He's building an army, gathering weapons, and he's been using you as a pawn in his plans, he thought you. We're too loyal, too trusting to question his intentions. But now that you're no longer useful to him, he wants you out of the way. Leora felt the world around her spin. The man she had married, the man she had trusted, was planning to destroy her. She had spent years standing by his side, supporting him in every decision, believing they were building something greater together. But now, it all seemed like a lie. Why didn't you stop him earlier? She asked, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. Why didn't the council warn me? Why send a human soldier to protect me? Lucas paused, then spoke again. The Galactic Council had no idea what Darius was planning. He kept his ambitions hidden well, even from the council. But when we discovered his true intentions, we knew we had to act fast. That's when I was sent here to protect you. The mission was clear. Stop Darius before he could carry out his plans. Leora's head was spinning. She had spent her entire life in the palace, surrounded by luxury, never questioning the politics and power struggles happening outside her royal walls. Now everything she knew was in doubt. She looked at Lucas, who had remained calm and focused. This entire time, why are you helping me? She asked, still unsure. You don't owe me anything. I'm just a princess, someone you were assigned to protect. Lucas's eyes softened, and he stepped closer. I may be here to protect you, princess, but I'm not just following orders. I've seen too many good people suffer because of corrupt rulers. I won't let that happen to you. You're not just a princess. You're a person. You deserve to be free from all of this. Leora looked at him, his words sinking into her heart. It was hard for her to accept, but she knew he was right. Her life had never truly been her own. It had always been controlled by the rules of the kingdom, the expectations of her marriage. But now, with everything turned upside down, she felt a strange sense of freedom. Even though she was running for her life, Lucas led her to a small shuttle hidden beneath the palace. The ship was sleek and fast, a human design. It wasn't the grand ships of the royal fleet, but Leora realized it didn't need to be. It was all they had, and it would have to be enough. As the shuttle lifted off, Leora gazed out the window, watching the palace fade into the distance. She felt a mix of emotions, fear, anger, and even a sense of relief. For the first time in years, she wasn't just a royal figurehead. She was Leora, a woman fighting for her life. Lucas set the shuttle on course for a remote planet far from the reach of the prince's forces. It was a safe haven, a place where she could regroup and begin to figure out her next steps. But even as the planet's surface came into view, Leora knew that the hardest part was yet to come. "I don't know what the future holds," she said quietly, looking at Lucas. "But I can't go back. I won't. I'm not the princess they want me to be anymore." Lucas nodded. "And you don't have to be. You have the power to shape your own destiny now, princess. You're not alone." Leora looked at him, a sense of determination building inside her. She wasn't just running anymore. She was fighting for herself, for her freedom. And she would do whatever it took to stop her husband and anyone else who tried to control her. From taking it away, as the shuttle soared through space, Leora realized that this was just the beginning of her journey. She had survived the first step, but the war for her life, fanned the galaxy's future, was far from over. Leora sat in the shuttle, staring out of the small window as the distant stars moved past. The vastness of space felt both empty and full at the same time. She was free now, but the weight of what had happened back at the palace pressed heavily on her chest. How had it come to this? How had the man she loved, the man she married for peace, become her greatest enemy? Lucas was focused on the controls, his face serious and calm. He hadn't said much since they left the palace, but Leora knew he was. Watching the sensors, making sure they weren't being followed. She needed answers. But more than that, she needed a plan. "Where are we going?" she asked again, trying to keep her voice steady. She had asked earlier, but she needed to hear it again. Lucas didn't look at her, but his voice was reassuring. "We're heading to a hidden outpost. It's far from the prince's reach. We'll be safe there for now," Leora nodded, though she wasn't sure what safe meant anymore. Her whole life had been turned upside down, and now she was relying on a stranger, on Lucas, the human soldier who had warned her about her husband's deadly plot. Her world felt smaller than it ever had before, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead made her uneasy. As the ship traveled through space, Leora found herself thinking about her family, the royal family, her parents. They must be worried sick. She had to wonder if they knew about Darius's plan. Had her father, the king, known that his son-in-law was planning to kill her? She thought of her mother, who had always wanted her to marry for love, not for politics. She wondered if her mother would ever forgive her for being so blind to Darius. "True nature? Do you think they'll come after me?" she asked, breaking the silence. She wasn't sure if she was asking Lucas or herself. Lucas glanced at her then, his expression hard. "They will," he said firmly. "Darius has already started moving his forces. Once he knows you're alive, he won't stop until he finds you." Leora closed her eyes, trying to push the fear out of her mind. She had been a princess, a symbol of peace for 2 planets, and now she was a fugitive. A target. The woman who had once been adored by her people was now someone to be hunted. "But we won't let them catch us," Lucas added, his voice more confident. "You have a choice now, Leora. You can stay hidden and safe, or you can fight. But if you want to stop your husband, if you want to protect your people, you'll have to fight." Leora opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. She had never been trained for war. She had never thought of herself as a fighter. But now, in this moment, she knew Lucas was right. She couldn't hide forever. Darius would find her, and the galaxy would suffer if he gained more power. It was time for her to step up, not as a princess, but as a woman who had something worth fighting for. "I'll fight," she said, the words feeling foreign but true. "I'll fight for my life. I'll fight for my people. But I don't know how." Lucas smiled slightly, the first hint of warmth she had seen from him. "That's where I come in," he said. "I'll teach you everything you need to know." For the first time since leaving the palace, Leora felt a small spark of hope. Lucas was right. She didn't have to do this alone. If she could learn to fight, she could take back her life and stop Darius. It wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer the woman who had been locked away in a palace. She was something stronger now. She was a survivor. The outposters later, the shuttle finally landed on a small remote planet. The outpost was hidden deep in a dense forest, far away from the eyes of Darius' soldiers. The air here was thick with the scent of trees and earth, a sharp contrast to the cold, metallic smell of the palace she had left behind. Leora stepped out of the shuttle, her boots crunching on the dry ground. The planet was quiet, peaceful in its solitude. "This is it," Lucas said, his voice still calm, but there was a hint of caution in it now. "This is the only place where you can be safe for now." Leora nodded, though she knew that safety was temporary. There was no true safety in the galaxy, not for her. She couldn't stay hidden forever. As they walked toward the small structure ahead, Leora took in her surroundings. The outpost was simple, nothing like the grand palace she had known. There were no golden walls or jewels, just the rough simplicity of a place that existed for one purpose: survival. "This is where we'll train," Lucas explained as they entered the building. Inside there were weapons, training equipment, and a few soldiers who were working on repairs. The human soldiers had a strict, no-nonsense way of doing things, and Leora could see the discipline in every movement. "I won't let them find me," she said softly, more to herself than to Lucas. She wasn't just running anymore. She was going to fight back. Lucas led her to a training area where a few soldiers were sparring. They stopped and looked up as Leora entered, their eyes curious but respectful. She could feel their gaze on her, and for the first time she didn't mind. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was one of them. "For the next few days, you'll learn how to fight. We'll start with the basics: defense, how to use weapons, how to stay alive when you're under attack. You may not be able to match their strength or experience right now, but with time, you'll be able to defend yourself." Leora nodded, her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. She had no choice now. The life she had known was gone, and the woman she once was fading away. But in its place was something new. She was becoming stronger, becoming a fighter. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady, despite the uncertainty in her heart. And with that, the next chapter of her life began. She wasn't just running from danger anymore, she was preparing to face it head-on. The days passed quickly at the hidden outposts, and Leora found herself becoming more accustomed to the life she had never imagined. The quiet, peaceful princess she once was gone. In her place stood a woman who had to learn how to survive. In a harsh galaxy, Lucas had become both her teacher and her guide, helping her train day after day. At first, it had been difficult for Leora to accept. She had never held a weapon before, never had to fight for anything in her life. But each day she grew stronger, more determined. It wasn't just about protecting herself anymore. It was about taking control of her future. She was tired and sore, but she knew that what she was doing was necessary. As Lucas had said, the prince's forces would eventually find her, and when they did, she had to be ready. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling training session, Leora sat on a bench wiping the sweat from her brow. She had been learning how to wield a blaster, how to defend herself with simple moves, how to read the signs of an ambush. Lucas approached her, his expression serious, as always. "You've made a lot of progress, princess. You're almost ready?" Leora nodded, but she felt a knot in her stomach. "I don't feel ready," she admitted. "I don't feel like I've learned enough." "You've learned more than you think," Lucas replied. "But there's still one thing you have to understand. Training is important, but it's the will to fight that makes the difference. You have to want to win. You have to want to survive." Leora looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of confidence. She wasn't just running from her past anymore. She was becoming someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who could stand up for herself, for her people. "I won't run anymore," she said, standing up and looking him in the eyes. "I won't hide." Lucas smiled slightly, a rare moment of warmth breaking through his usual calm exterior. "Good. That's the attitude we need.
Out.
But we'll need more than just skills. We'll need allies, and we're running out of time." Leora's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Lucas' smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. "Your husband is more dangerous than you know. He's already gathering his forces, and I have reason to believe he's planning an attack on this outpost soon. He'll stop at nothing to find you. He knows you're alive." Leora's blood ran cold at the thought. The prince was coming for her, and they didn't have much time. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear that bubbled inside her. "We prepare for battle," Lucas said simply. "Can't run anymore. The fight is coming to us, and we have to be ready." The ambush. It was late that night when the first signs of trouble appeared. Leora had just finished her evening training session when the alarm sounded across the outpost. Her heart raced as she rushed to the command room, where Lucas and a group of soldiers were already gathered, preparing for the worst. "We've got company," Lucas said, his voice tight with urgency. "Darius's forces are closing in. Need to hold them off?" Leora's pulse quickened. She had trained for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt a rush of fear. It wasn't just about defending herself anymore. It was about defending everyone who had helped her. Soldiers in the outpost, Lucas. She couldn't let them down. "Where do I go?" she asked, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. "You stay here for now," Lucas said, handing her a weapon. "We'll need you in the next phase. If we can't hold them off, we'll retreat to the secondary location. But we can't afford to lose this fight." Leora took the weapon from him, her fingers gripping it tightly. She could feel the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a soldier, fighting to protect her life and the lives of those around her. As the battle outside grew louder, Lucas and the soldiers prepared their defenses. Leora stood by, watching, waiting for the right moment. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her training had prepared her. She could feel the strength building inside her. Hours passed, each one more tense than the last. The sounds of laser fire and explosions echoed through the forest, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Leora's nerves were on edge, but she stayed focused. Every movement, every breath felt important now. She wasn't just surviving, she was fighting back. Then, a transmission came through. The voice on the other end was harsh, filled with static. "This is Darius. Surrender now, Leora. You can't hide from me forever. Come back to me and I'll spare your life. Resist, and you will die along with everyone else in that outpost." Leora felt a surge of anger rise in her chest. The prince had always thought he could control everything, manipulate everyone, but not anymore. She stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "I will never return to you. I will fight, and I will win." The transmission cut off abruptly, and the sounds of battle grew louder. Darius had given his orders, and now the final fight was here. The final stand. The outpost was under attack. Darius' forces, well-trained and well-equipped, pressed forward with ruthless efficiency. The soldiers in the outpost fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. Leora could see the determination in their eyes, but it wasn't enough. Prince had come prepared for a war, and they had only limited resources. "Now is the time," Lucas said, grabbing Leora's arm. "Get to the secondary location. Can't hold them off much longer." Leora hesitated. "What about you?" "Wait. About the others? I'll stay with the main force," Lucas said, his expression hard. "You need to go. It's your only chance." "No," Leora said firmly, shaking her head. "I'm not leaving. Not now." Lucas met her gaze, his eyes filled with something like admiration. "Then we fight together." Leora nodded. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was ready. The two of them, side by side, joined the battle. The blaster fire was intense, and every moment felt like a fight for survival. But Leora was different now. She wasn't the princess who had been saved. She was the warrior who would fight for her life, for her future, and for the galaxy. The battle at the outpost was fierce. The sky above was filled with explosions as the forces of Prince Darius stormed forward, trying to crush what little resistance remained. Leora stood alongside Lucas, her blaster raised, her heart pounding. In her chest, this was the moment she had been preparing for. Everything had led to this. She could feel the weight of the weapon in her hands. But she also felt something else, a fire inside her that had been ignited ever since she learned the truth about her husband. She wasn't going to run anymore. She wasn't going to hide. "Stay focused, princess," Lucas said as he moved to her side. He fired his own weapon, taking down one of the advancing soldiers. "We can't let Darius win. This is your fight." Now, Leora nodded. She knew the importance of what was happening. Darius wasn't just her husband. He was a tyrant, a man who had no qualms about taking what he wanted, even if it meant destroying everything in his path. He had already tried to kill her, and now he was willing to sacrifice countless lives to take control of the galaxy. "Where is he?" Leora asked, scanning the battlefield. The chaos was overwhelming, but she was determined to find him. She had to face him. "Darius is leading the charge," Lucas replied, his voice grim. "He's probably somewhere in the middle of his army. But be careful. He's dangerous." Leora gripped her weapon tighter. She had faced the enemy before, but this was different. This wasn't just about fighting for survival. This was personal. This was about taking back her life, her freedom, stopping a man who had betrayed everything she thought she knew about love and loyalty. They moved together through the smoke-filled battlefield, dodging blasts and firing at anything that moved. Leora's hands were shaking, but she steadied herself. This was her moment. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. The fighting raged on as they pushed through the battlefield, moving closer to the heart of the enemy's forces. Leora could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as they fought their way toward the prince. Each step felt like a battle of its own, but with Lucas by her side, she felt stronger than ever. Finally, they reached the front lines, where Darius was standing, barking orders at his soldiers. His back was to them, but Leora could see him clearly. Now he was dressed in his royal armor, the symbol of his kingdom shining bright. But to Leora, it no longer meant power or glory. It meant a man willing to destroy everything for his own gain. "Darius," Leora shouted, her voice strong and clear. The prince turned slowly, a cruel smile spreading across his face when he saw her. "Leora," he said, his voice cold. "I knew you'd come eventually, but it's too late. You can't stop me now." Leora felt a rush of anger rise in her chest. "You've already killed so many," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "You've used me as a pawn in your games, and now you want to destroy everything I've ever cared about. You're not the man I thought you were." Darius laughed darkly. "You were always a tool, Leora, a means to an end. Now, you've outlived your usefulness. I'll take everything you've ever known, and I'll crush it. This galaxy will be mine." Leora raised her blaster, her eyes never leaving his. "Not anymore," she said, her voice filled with determination. Without another word, she fired. The blast hit Darius's armor, and for a moment, he stood there, stunned. But then, his soldiers began to move toward her, and the battle around them intensified. Darius was down, but the war wasn't over yet. Lucas moved swiftly, taking down enemies with precision, clearing the way for Leora. She fought alongside him, her mind focused on one goal: to stop her husband once and for all. But as the battle continued, Leora felt a surge of doubt. Was she truly strong enough to defeat Darius and his forces? Was she capable of leading the galaxy to peace? She had never wanted this war. She had never wanted to be part of a battle for survival. But as the dust cleared and the sounds of blaster fire filled the air, she realized something. She had no choice now. This wasn't just about her. This was about saving the people she loved, the people who had been hurt by her husband's ambition. She had to keep fighting. With Lucas's help, they pushed forward, taking down the prince's remaining soldiers. The odds were against them, but Leora's resolve had never been stronger. As they fought, Leora saw the fear in the eyes of Darius's men. They had once followed him out of loyalty, but now they were realizing that the prince's reign was coming to an end. Finally, the last of Darius's soldiers fell, and the battlefield was silent. Leora stood amidst the ruins, panting heavily. She had done it. Darius was defeated. His forces had been wiped out. But even in the victory, Leora felt a heaviness in her heart. The cost of this battle had been high, and she knew that this was only the beginning of what lay ahead. There would be more challenges, more struggles, but Leora was ready. She wasn't the woman she once was. She was stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. Lucas approached her. His face covered in dust and sweat, but his eyes filled with respect. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You stopped him." "Ow." Leora nodded, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "We did it," she corrected him. "Together." As they stood side by side, the sun began to rise over the horizon, casting light over the land. The battle was over, but the journey was far from finished. Leora had taken back her life, and now she was ready to lead, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store for her. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a warrior, and this was only the beginning. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The ground around Leora was littered with the remains of the soldiers who had once served her husband. Virus, the man who had been her husband, lay defeated, and his forces had crumbled. But as Leora stood on the battlefield, her thoughts were not filled with triumph. She had fought for her life, for her freedom. But what would happen next? The victory had come at a heavy cost, and she knew the galaxy would not be easy to rebuild. Lucas stood beside her, his hand resting on the weapon at his side. His face was covered in dust, his clothes torn, but there was no mistaking the respect in his eyes. "You did it," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "You stopped him." Leora didn't respond at first. Her mind was too full of questions. What would she do now? She wasn't just the wife of a prince anymore. She wasn't just a princess. She was the last living heir to the throne of a galaxy that had been torn apart by war. But what kind of ruler could she be? She had never been trained for this. Her life had always been about peace, about alliances, not about war and survival. "Do you ever wonder what happens next?" Leora asked, her voice soft as she looked around at the devastation. "Now that he's gone, now that the war is over." Lucas paused, then turned to face her. "What happens next is up to you," he said. "You've won Leora. The people will need someone to guide them, someone they can trust. You're the only one who can do that." Leora took a deep breath, her heart heavy. She had never imagined her life would turn out this way. She had never wanted to be a leader. But now, it seemed that she had no choice. The people needed her, and she couldn't turn away from them. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, her voice filled with doubt. "I never asked for this. I don't know how to lead a galaxy." "You don't have to do it alone," Lucas said. "You have the people who fought with you, the ones who believe in you. You have me. And together, we'll rebuild what was lost." Leora looked at him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a small spark of hope. She had survived. She had fought for her life and her freedom. And now she could build something new, something better. She wasn't just the wife of a prince anymore. She wasn't just a symbol. She was a leader. And this time, it was her choice, as they left the battlefield and made their way to the nearby outpost. Leora's mind began to shift. She thought of the people who had suffered under Darius's rule, the families who had lost everything, the soldiers who had fought for a cause they didn't believe in. The galaxy had been in chaos for far too long. It was time for change. Rebuilding the galaxy, the days following the battle were filled with meetings, plans, and difficult decisions. Leora sat at a simple table in the outpost, surrounded by trusted allies. The room was small, the walls made of cold metal, but the people inside were warm with determination. Lucas was at her side, as always, helping her navigate the complexities of rebuilding a fractured world. They discussed everything from how to restore order to the planets that had fallen into disarray, to how to help those who had been left behind by the war. It wasn't easy. There were disagreements, fears, and doubts. But through it all, Leora felt a growing sense of purpose. She knew what needed to be done. And for the first time, she felt like she was capable of leading Leora. One of the soldiers said, her voice filled with respect, "We need your guidance. The people are looking to you. They don't want another ruler like Darius. They want someone who can bring peace and justice, someone who will fight for them." Leora nodded, her mind focused. "I will give them that," she said, her voice strong. "I'll rebuild the council, restore order. But we will do it together. We will make sure no one is ever left behind again." The room fell silent, and for the first time, Leora didn't feel like an outsider. She didn't feel like a woman who had lost everything. She felt like a leader. A leader who had fought for her freedom and now had the power to shape the future. As the weeks passed, Leora worked tirelessly, meeting with leaders from different planets, forging alliances, and working to restore peace to a galaxy that had been torn apart. It was hard. The challenges were endless. But every time she thought about giving up, she remembered why she had started this fight. For the people. For the future ahead. Leora stood on a balcony overlooking the capital of her new kingdom. The city was peaceful. Now, the streets filled with people who were no longer afraid. There was still work to be done, but the signs of hope were everywhere. It was a new beginning, and it was hers to shape. Lucas stood beside her, his eyes focused on the horizon. "You've done it," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've brought the galaxy back from the edge of destruction." Leora smiled, though her heart was still heavy with the weight of her decisions. "We've done it," she corrected him. "We did it together." Lucas nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "I never thought I'd see the day when a princess became the strongest leader the galaxy has ever seen." Leora chuckled softly. "Neither did I," she admitted. "But sometimes life forces you to become something you never imagined, and I'm ready to keep moving forward." The two of them stood in silence for a moment, watching the sun set over the city. It had been a long road, and there were more battles to face. But Leora knew that she had the strength to face whatever came next. She wasn't the woman she used to be, wasn't the princess who had once lived in a palace, protected by her title. She was something more. She was a leader, and the future was in her hands. As the stars began to shine above, Leora turned to Lucas, her heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Lucas smiled, his eyes softening. "You don't need to thank me, Leora. You've earned this. You've earned everything." And with that, the two of them walked away from the balcony, ready to face whatever the future held, together.